Chun competes, Ruslan Nurudinov is confirmed on the comeback, and Derrick Johnson attempts to sue USAW. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Weightlifting House News Show, the only weightlifting news show in the world. Now, I want to kick things off by announcing that the Weightlifting House Instagram page is properly back. So the last 2 weeks, I've not really spent a whole lot of time on it, but we've come up with a new style of video. Instead of just posting a single lift out of context in a training hall or in a competition, we're going to start posting the battles, contextualize things a little bit more, snatch battles, clean and jerk battles between two or more weightlifters. And we started this week, actually, with what better than Yang Zhe versus Andrei Romanow versus Simon Martirosyan, 3 back-to-back world record attempts and world record makes in the snatch. And so if you guys want to see more of the Tian Taos versus Meso Hisonos, the Chun versus Hsing, or Lasha versus, Lasha, then head over to the Weightlifting House Instagram account and you can check out all of the greatest weightlifting battles that we're going to be releasing over the upcoming months. We're also very close to 100,000 subscribers on Instagram, so, the more the merrier. Now, before I start, just in the interest of representing the sport of weightlifting better on the news show, I'm hoping that maybe some of you can post down below in the comments Instagram accounts of some of the top female weightlifters who do actually post regularly. I get to this point on the weightlifting news show basically every week where I have loads of lists from men, not so many from women. And I think part of that is just because the women that I follow are either not at the most elite level, or if they are, they basically never post anything ever. I mean, Chun is a good example of that. Amazing weightlifter, everyone asks for her lifts, but she never posts, so there's nothing to talk about. Fortunately, and to kind of rekindle the balance to some degree, I suppose, we are getting closer to putting out The Greatest Weightlifters of All Time Volume 2, which will be a countdown of the greatest female weightlifters ever. The book's been in the works for a long time. It's a lot harder to do this kind of book, actually, because for the women, as compared to the men's book, half of the top 50 are all Chinese women, and there is no information on these women. So we've had to contact the Chinese embassy, we've had to contact the North Korean embassy in the hopes that they'll actually give us some information outside of just numbers for the competitions for some of these women. But that will be coming out soon, so stick with us, and The Greatest Weightlifters Volume 2 will be out. Volume 1 is out at the moment, actually. It's now also available on Amazon in the USA, so I'll put a link to that down below. You can catch up with the greatest athletes, competitions, moments in the sport ever. Okay, so having mentioned her twice already, let's kick things off with Chun from Chinese Taipei, who competed in a in-house mock competition last week. So she lifted decently well. She went 4 for 6, 3 for 3 in the snatch, 100, 103, 106, which is a weight we've seen her make regularly. I mean, in this qualification period, she snatched 105 twice, she snatched 106 twice, and she's just done it again, although of course it's unofficial. Her best snatch ever in competition is 108. She did that in Poland at the 2013 World Championships. She's also done 107 before at the Chinese Taipei Universiade World Championship type competition back in 2017. Can't quite remember the name of it off the top of my head. So this 106 is actually way up there in terms of the best that she's done. Interestingly, and this is something that was posted by the Squat Jerk journalist, who you guys should follow on Instagram, when she made the 106, her coach yells out to her saying that there's more in the tank and that she's made errors, and if she kind of fixed her technique up a bit, she might be able to lift a little bit more. So even for someone like Chun, who is, to my eyes, to the eyes of most people watching, about as technically perfect as you can get, her coach still wants her to be doing even more. Now, in the clean and jerk, Kuo didn't do quite so well, and in part this was just because she had to follow herself. Normally she has a couple of other weightlifters, Hsing from North Korea is one of them, who's able to go in between her attempts and give herself a little bit more rest. She didn't have that this time, so she made her opener at 132 kilos. She then jumped to 136, and the clean looked a little bit tough, actually. It kind of crashed on her a little bit more than normally does. She normally meets the bar very smoothly. Crashed on her. She got up with it even though, and the jerk just wasn't quite there. Her elbow buckled slightly. She then only had, 2 minutes before she had to come out again. She comes out to 141. She goes up because ultimately this competition doesn't matter. There are no real competitors. The outcome of this has no account for what's going to happen at the Olympics. So she goes up to 141, which is 1 kilo over her own world record of 140 and 1 kilo below her best ever clean and jerk of 142 that she did in the old weight classes. And this 141, I guess she's just not fresh enough. She pulls on it. She kind of jumps forward a little bit, which she doesn't normally do. Because of that, she catches the bar a little bit further back on her heels. That rocks her back, and she ends up just falling backwards behind her. And, she's so, she's been involved in the sport long enough. She has so much experience. She knows to just keep hold of the bar. She falls back. The bar never crushes you if you just keep holding it. And then she rolls it back over her head. But anyway, 4 for 6 for Chun. Very nice just to see how she's doing, I guess. We haven't seen much of her recently. But I think what makes this exciting is the fact that this isn't enough. If she competes like this at the Olympics and gets a 238 total, that won't get the gold medal. And Chun still doesn't have an Olympic gold medal, despite the many World Championship golds that she has, despite the many world records that she has. This 238 would have placed her third at the World Championships. Hsing, I think, lifted 245, so 7 kilos over this. So Chun can't just rest on her laurels and go 4 for 6 at the Olympics. She's going to have to do a 5 or 6 for 6 kind of competition if she wants to get that gold finally in Tokyo. So let's head over to China now to talk about the 381 kilo lifters, Delin, Dayin and Xiaojun, and then we'll move on to a 58 kilo weightlifter. So this week Delin hit 130 kilos for a power snatch triple. Looked very easy, the first rep very high, gradually got a little bit lower as you'd expect. Then he finished that off with a 160 snatch single. Now, I think Delin is the kind of guy who now we're going to have to kind of shelve a little bit until he does something truly spectacular, maybe until he makes that 190 hang snatch. We won't mention him again. I think he looks maybe like he should be a true 89 kilo lifter, and then maybe in the next quad he's going to have to decide, do I go to 96, contend with Tian Tao? I mean, he's going to have to get a lot stronger to be able to do that, or do I cut down to 81 and try and get into the position that Dayin has been in this quad with regards to Xiaojun? But anyway, he looks a little bit on the skinnier side compared to a lot of the great Chinese weightlifters, so we might see him gradually move up, push into the 89 kilo category. Speaking of Dayin, there's actually a video that's going around at the moment, posted by Zhang Insta on Instagram, of him at the age 18 pulling or deadlifting really 260 kilos. Now, Dayin is 22 years old at the moment, and he's really filled out a lot since. I mean, Dayin is one of the most jacked 81 kilo lifters you'll see. In fact, when you see him stood next to Xiaojun in the training hall or in competition, you actually can't believe that they're the same weight class. Dayin is taller and just bigger than Xiaojun. I guess Xiaojun is just denser than Dayin is. But anyway, this video from 4 years ago just shows how strong Dayin has always been in the pull, how talented he's been, and presumably he must have been somewhere in the 70 kilos body weight at that point. I don't think he looked as heavy as he does now. I wouldn't be surprised if he was sat somewhere around 77 kilos, which would make sense actually considering that was the weight class at the time. So this is 4 years ago, 4 kilos lighter, still able to pull 260 kilos. And then lastly from the Chinese 81s, just because you can't not mention it when he does some squats, Xiaojun, the GOAT, 36-year-old legend, 210 kilos for 4 on the front squat. His best ever front squat is 270 kilos, or at least that's what he told me in an interview. So this still some way down, but it moved fast enough. We know that he can clean it, and we know that given the pressure, there's a good chance he might even be able to clean and jerk it for another 3 kilo international PR come Tokyo 2021. Next we have a video from China that I think must be old because it's of 58 kilo Lin Xuehua, who hit a 200 kilo back squat. Now the reason I think this is old is, well, 58 kilos is one of the older weight classes. It's now 59, then it jumps to 64 or 55 before that. So I think this must have been an older video. But even so, it's just interesting to see a 58 kilo weightlifter back squatting 200 kilos. We haven't really seen a female weightlifter of that body weight back squat 200 other than Chun, who did it at 59, so 1 kilo heavier. And then, of course, Bianca Kostova, who ridiculously front squatted 200 and 210 kilos. She is arguably the greatest squatter of all time, regardless of weight class or sport. But removing her, and she's been popped a bunch of times, so I think you can remove her from the conversation quite fairly. I think this squat from Lin Xuehua is actually right up there as one of the greatest squats we've seen, alongside Chun's 200 also. Moving over now to Japan, we have the newly 96 kilo chunkiest weightlifter in the world, Toshiki Yamamoto, who just hit another 300 kilo back squat. This is a weight he's hit many times. In fact, I mentioned him on the news show for doing it again just a couple of weeks ago. But I figured I'd mention it this week as an excuse to be able to talk about where Toshiki sits in the Roby standings, his likelihood of going to the Olympics, and basically just that 96 kilo categorization of Roby points. So the way that Toshiki handled this qualification process is he competed fundamentally as an 89 kilo weightlifter. The reason he did that is because during the last weight class, the last Olympics, he was an 85, and the jump from 85 to 96 is just way too much. So he competed as an 89, where he's actually technically a little bit more competitive. He's closer to the peak potential, he's closer to the world records in that weight class, and so he was able to secure a lot of Roby points as an 89. He then gained some weight and moved up to the 96 kilo class, took those Roby points with him, and now is in a decent place. So he's currently sitting in 11th, which isn't in the top 8, so he's not guaranteed to go. But once you take out one of the 2 Colombians who currently rank above him, because of course only one from each country can go, he then moves into 10th, and in that 10th spot he actually occupies the highest continental spot in Asia outside of the top 8, which also means that he's likely to then go to the Olympics. An added plus for him as well is the fact that he's actually only competed once in this third qualifying period, and he didn't do well. He did something around 600 or 650 Roby points. If he competes well as a 96 at the Asian Championships in 2021, he should get somewhere around 900 Roby points, which will bump him up to 3,600-ish in total, and then all of a sudden he's actually in the top 8. So he doesn't even need to worry about occupying the continental slot. He'll just be in the top 8. So I think right now, looking at the 96 kilo Roby rankings, Toshiki Yamamoto is safe. He is going to go to the Tokyo Olympics. Okay, exciting news now over in Uzbekistan. Ruslan Nurudinov is still training. I've mentioned him over the last 2 weeks. The first week he did a 110 kilo snatch double, wasn't particularly exciting. Last week I mentioned that I had seen a video of him doing, I think it was 180 for a clean double. That was a video posted from a friend of mine who's there in Uzbekistan with him and Meso filming. And then this week some actual videos got released. They were leaked, and so I think everyone is pretty much clued in now. So Ruslan Nurudinov this week did a 150 kilo snatch double. The most we've ever seen from him in training is 205. He's one of the few 105s who went over 200, along with guys like Klokov, guys like Akayev, guys like Marcin Delega. He's one of those group who managed to get over 200 kilos on the floor as a 105. So this 150 is still, 73% of that. But even so, it looked very good. He then went on to hit 180 kilos for a clean plus hang clean, and then 200 kilos for a clean plus hang clean also. Of course, we've seen him do 239 kilos in competition back in 2014 in one of the most exciting ends to a session ever, the 239, 240, 242 back-to-back-to-back world record clean jerks from him, Bedzanian and Ilya. But even so, 200 is the most we've seen, at least in the last year, since he received that ban a couple of years ago. Then today he posted a video of a 160 kilo snatch double off block, so he's just edging a little bit closer, now approaching the 78, almost hitting 80 percentile of his best ever snatch for a double. So I didn't want to talk about this without actually guaranteeing that he was coming back. So I called up Meso, who he's training with, the world silver medalist, and I said to him, is Ruslan Nurudinov actually trying to make a comeback? And he said yes. So Ruslan Nurudinov is planning, according to Meso, to start competing towards the end of 2020. If the Qatar Cup goes ahead this year, of course it might not, a lot of competitions aren't going to go ahead with what's going on around the world right now. If it does go ahead, Ruslan Nurudinov is going to train for that competition and compete there. If he does, I'll then fly out to Qatar, I'll spend some time with Meso and Ruslan Nurudinov, try and get not only some great footage of those two training head-to-head in the same way that Meso and Ilya did last year, but also get some interviews from Ruslan Nurudinov, the Olympic champion, to try and learn a little bit more about him, his life, and his return also. And then lastly, about Ruslan, Meso thinks that he's probably around the 175, 215 kind of mark right now, if he was to max out. This is Ruslan, not Meso. I think Meso is significantly higher than that right now. But Ruslan right now, 175, 215. So we're looking at somewhere over 80% of his all-time best in training, which is exciting for him, for Uzbekistan, and for all of us weightlifting fans. And then let's stick quickly with Meso Hsing right now, because he's on another tear, despite the fact that he's working really hard to hit an enormous snatch off blocks. And he actually said to me that very soon he's going to send me some huge videos from training, so I think he is kind of preparing for these. He did some other great lifts this week. So a 170 kilo snatch looked very comfortable. That's right around 93% of his best. And then he followed that up with a 220 kilo clean and jerk. That's only 11 kilos under the world record. It's only 8 kilos under his best from Qatar Cup last year when he beat Kianush Rustami in that epic competition. You can watch that video somewhere, maybe down below, maybe just in the Weightlifting House channel. But he did 220 kilos this week, and I think it looked just about as easy as any 220 kilo clean and jerk from Meso has ever looked. We've seen him do 217 kilos at the World Championships, 224 kilos at the World Championships. Hopefully those two videos can play now so you can kind of see them and compare the speed with this current 220. And then of course we've seen him do 225, 228 and a few lifts there and thereabouts. But when you compare this 220 to those other ones that he's done in competition, Meso's actually in great shape right now. And you can tell that his leg strength is also up right now. He hit 270 kilos for a double in the back squat. His best is 301. He's pushing for 305, 310 at the moment. So I don't think it's going to be long before he either doubles 220 in the clean, which he told me he was going to try and do, or goes for something like 230, maybe sneaks on a couple of greens on either side, goes for an unofficial world record 232. Moving over now to Russia, we have the king of the hang snatches at least, the 2015 and 2018 world champion Artem Okulov. And this week he did some more big hang lifts. Last week I mentioned him for his hang snatch prowess. Of course, in the past he's doubled 180 in the hang snatch. He's singled 190 at 85. Incredible hang snatcher. This week he did at 140 kilos a snatch plus 3 hang snatches. He then went and did 150 kilos just for 2 from the hang. But even so, these are big lifts. I mean, we know that he's good at hang snatches, but we also know that he's good at repping things out. In the past, he's done a 160 kilo triple, which is a phenomenal lift. He's also done 140 kilos for 5 from the floor. Hopefully some of these videos are playing around me right now so you can see how good he is at repping and hanging snatches. But even so, nice to see him do 140 for a 1+3 and a 150 hang double also. Alright guys, don't forget, this episode, in fact all episodes, the Weightlifting House news show is sponsored by Red H Nutrition. Now, as I've said before, there's a lot of really exciting things going on with Red H Nutrition and Weightlifting House and the sport of weightlifting. They're going to be doing a lot of stuff to try and become the official supplement guys of weightlifting. But guys, if you want to try all of this stuff, they've got a whole load of other stuff as well. Pre-workouts, post-workouts, all of the good stuff. If you just want to try some of that stuff, make sure you use discount code WEIGHTHOUSE15. That's with a capital W and a capital H. Once again, that's WEIGHTHOUSE15, capital W, capital H, for 15% off. And in supporting them, you're going to be supporting us, and you're going to be getting, honestly, the greatest supplements that we have in the sport of weightlifting. Like I said last week, I'll keep you guys updated with what I'm doing with them. We might have a new supplement coming out specific for weightlifters, created by me and Joshua Gibson, the People Scientist, and a few others of us here at Weightlifting House. But I'll keep you guys up to date with that. But in the meantime, code WEIGHTHOUSE15, capital W, capital H, for 15% off all Red H Nutrition supplements. Moving over now to Belarus, it is not Andrei Romnau, it's not Yevgeny Tkantsu, it's actually the super heavyweight Eduard Ziaziulin, the 109 kilo weightlifter who placed 4th at the World Championships where he went 198, 234. And this week he just hit an enormous front squat plus jerk in training at 240 kilos. Now, considering we saw only 234 kilos from him in the clean and jerk at the World Championships, which actually only gave him 8th place in the clean and jerk, though he managed to get 4th in the total, it's really nice to see him do this 6 kilos heavier front squat plus jerk. He's looking in pretty good shape. In fact, a few months ago, he also snatched 200 kilos from the floor, which is the most we've ever seen from him, in competition. And the 200 kilos looked kind of like an opener. It looks like he's capable of 210 kilos. He's also one of the slimmer, more jacked supers, a little bit more of a Pielieshenko, Evgeny Chigashev type weightlifter in that super heavyweight category. And so as he gains weight and starts filling out up into the 150s, 60s, maybe even 70s, and he's probably got the frame for it, the guy is enormous, we might start seeing him pushing that 210, 250-ish kind of range. Right now, Eduard is actually way down in the rankings in that super heavyweight category for Roby points, but he's only competed once in the 3rd qualification period, and at that time when he did compete, he clearly just went for a laugh. He did a 140 snatch and a 170 clean and jerk. That's a 310 total. That's about 120-ish kilos below his best ever total, so he only ended up getting 300 Roby points for that. If he goes to the European Championships this year and does decently well, he'll get 800-900 Roby points, something like that, and suddenly he'll fly up the rankings, and I think he'll actually move up to maybe 4th or 5th overall in the rankings for the super heavies. Over in Ukraine, Oleksandr Pielieshenko appears to be making a return. He is a two-time European champion. He placed 4th at the 2016 Olympic Games in that 85 kilo weight class, and he has best competition lift of 175-211. He really is a fantastic weightlifter. But back in 2018, he was popped out of competition for clothalidone, which is a masking agent. So not only is it a diuretic, which I guess allows you to cut weight, though because this was out of competition, I don't think he was taking it for that. But you're also able to take that to help mask other anabolic steroids. So presumably that's why he was popped for clothalidone. But technically he was banned until 2026. That's an 8-year ban in total, which is enormous. I think those bans are there now basically as a deterrent to say, look, unless you're a teenager, your career's over at this point if you get one of these bans. But anyway, it's supposed to be 2026. But he mentioned on a post that he's actually going to court to try and alleviate that, get that cut down, and start competing again, just like Nurudinov said, by the end of this year. I'm kind of wondering if maybe he's hoping that the McLaren report, all of the crazy corruption that came out in the McLaren report, is going to be able to provide him some cover to almost excuse what happened to him and allow him to get back into the sport sooner. And he's actually in decent shape right now. As an 85, maybe he weighs a little bit more now, like 89 kilos. As an 89 kilo lifter, he just hit 190 kilos in the snatch balance. He back squatted 250 for a double. He did a snatch plus hang snatch at 150 and a 200 kilo block clean as well. I just remembered that one. So he's actually in pretty decent shape right now. Whether or not he does get allowed to compete again, I don't know. But either way, Oleksandr Pielieshenko, it might be interesting to see what happens in the court as he tries to kind of nestle his way back into the sport. This week we have two lifters from Latvia. The first is 81 kilo under 23 European champion Ritvars Suharevs, who didn't hit any snatch and clean and jerks this week or back squats, but he did hit a box jump. Now this box jump was right at chin height. In fact, he actually walked up to it and pretty much rested his chin on it. It was a huge box jump. Technically, he didn't make it. He got his feet up onto it and then let himself fall back off rather than standing up onto it to prove that he'd made it. But even so, it is amazing to see how high people can jump when they snatch 2 times their body weight and they only weigh 81 kilos. So amazing hops from Ritvars. He then went and hit a 170 kilo snatch grip push press. Now, whether or not the snatch grip push press and the snatch actually correlate particularly tightly, that's another conversation for another time. But anyway, it's nice to compare those. His 96 kilo compatriot Vadim Kozevnikov's just hit 195 kilos for a triple in the clean and jerk. Now that's not clean, clean, clean jerk or clean jerk, jerk, jerk. That's clean jerk, clean jerk, clean jerk, which is ridiculous considering that his best ever clean and jerk in competition, I believe, is 207 kilos. So this is just 12 kilos less. This is like 94% of his best for a true triple. Now, it's not like he drops a bar and he immediately grabs it again, but it's also not like he stands around for 20 seconds and turns into a cluster set. I think this is a legit triple. And what maybe makes it more impressive than the fact that it's 94% of his best is the fact that the first rep looked like a 1 rep max. It looked really hard. The clean was heavy, the front squat was heavy, the jerk wasn't easy, and he still managed to make 3 reps out of it. So Vadim Kozevnikov's, fair play for that grit and determination. And then finally from Europe, before we head over the Atlantic to the Americas, we have the super heavyweight, the 18-year-old super heavyweight from the Netherlands, Enzo Kuworge, who actually is the owner of an XXXXL weightlifting house t-shirt I once gave him. He's an enormous kid. I mean, 18 years old. He's 198 centimeters. That's 6'5". He weighs 150 kilos, 330 pounds. He is absolutely enormous to look at. And this week he hit a new PR in the power clean plus power jerk at 195 kilos. Now, Enzo's best lifts in competition are 171, 220. I know he's done more off the blocks. I've certainly seen him do 175 in the snatch off blocks. But it looks maybe like this year the Olympics are a stretch too far. He's not quite got the Roby points to go. But wait until Paris. Wait until this guy is 22 years old rather than 18 years old. And suddenly he's 165 kilos and he's snatching 200 kilos and clean and jerking 240 kilos. And he's really going to be one of the top super heavyweights. So I would highly recommend you guys going and following Enzo Kuworge on Instagram. Okay, let's go to the USA and let's talk about the more sensitive of the topics from the USA this week. Derrick Johnson, the 61 kilo American record holder in the snatch, he's a multiple time national champion. He's competed internationally a bunch of times too. In fact, he's been involved in the sport for like 90% of his life at this point, I think. He is looking to go to the Olympics despite not having any Roby points yet. He hasn't competed, he hasn't qualified, but according to him, there's a certain level of injustice that has prevented him from making the qualification. Now, this is actually a pretty difficult topic to cover because right now, Derrick hasn't really released much information about this at all, other than the fact that he believes, and this is a quote from him, that USAW doesn't care about the lives of black people, and also that he wants to hold a boycott of USAW. Now, quite how that all ties into the fact that he feels like he was prevented from going to the Olympics and that he's going to try and sue his way there, I don't know. There might be some correlation, there might be separate issues, we don't currently know. So what I went and did was I just asked Derrick for a quote, because he'd actually used the Weightlifting House document on the rundown of the McLaren report as part of his evidence in all of this. So I just asked him for a quote and he sent one over. So I'll go through that and explain as much as we know, as much as anyone currently knows, to hopefully make the situation a little bit more understandable for people. So a lot of you know about the McLaren report. Richard McLaren was hired to investigate corruption in the IWF, and according to Derrick, he was basically the only athlete from the USA who helped participate in that and gave any information. Instead of sending me a quote specific to this conversation, he actually just sent me a screenshot of the email that he sent to Richard McLaren, which I have here, and I will just read out for you guys so that you can understand as much as I know about what's going on with this situation. So this is from Derrick Johnson. Dear Mr. McLaren, it was great to read your McLaren report on weightlifting that came out a few weeks ago and documenting the corruption in the sport, and I'm honoured to have helped with your investigation. I want to connect you with my attorneys Melissa Fulgencio and Stephanie Beal as we prepare for mediation with USA Weightlifting and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. The evidence that you laid out in your report is the exact reason that USAW targeted and tried to eliminate me from making international teams and competing for Team USA. I believe the first-hand accounts of the corruption that you unearthed in weightlifting will greatly help my case, and this information will be vital for my attorneys. So it seems like he's saying that the corruption in the IWF that led to the whole McLaren report was also present in USA Weightlifting and prevented him from qualifying for various competitions. Now, the problem is there was a lot of corruption that was presented in the McLaren report. Some of it was telling athletes that they couldn't compete and that they would have to basically bomb out purposefully. Other things were to do with paying off drug tests. Others were to do with countries not paying IWF enough money. So right now, this is such a vague allegation basically from Derrick Johnson. Not to say that he doesn't have anything that he's going to put forward soon and release to us and to other people to see. But right now, this is so vague, it's really impossible to comment on other than just reading out what he has emailed to Richard McLaren and what he's posted online on social media, which hopefully you guys can see as posts around me during this conversation. It is probably worth mentioning that on social media, Derrick has actually received quite a lot of heat from a lot of people. I think in the USA, a lot of people are very close to and feel very fondly of USA weightlifting, and so there's obviously a little bit of friction there between other members of the sport and Derrick Johnson. Even so, right now, it seems like these are, to some extent, not empty allegations, but certainly lacking in any substance as of yet. I'll keep asking Derrick for quotes, I'll keep asking USAW for quotes, and I'll keep everybody updated as the story unfolds over the coming weeks. But right now, that's the situation. We don't know a whole lot more, and hopefully we find out that there's been some level of misunderstanding and that there are no massive problems that need to be unearthed. But who knows? We'll keep you guys updated. Okay, so let's move over to some slightly less juicy forms of news from USA weightlifting to 89 kilo Jordan Cantrell, who hit a PR in the power jerk this week off the blocks at 205 kilos. That's 451 pounds. Not quite sure why I just put that in pounds. We don't do that here. This is a weightlifting podcast. But even so, 205 kilos, that's 2 kilos below the American record, or technically the American standard because it hasn't yet been hit since the weight class has changed. 2 kilos below that, 12 kilos below the clean and jerk world standard, again for that 89 kilo weight class. But it's kind of put him once again in a position where people kind of start recognizing just how strong Jordan is and just how much of a threat he can be when he decides to go either up to the 96s or down to the 81s next quad to try and qualify for the Olympics. Kate Nye has been lifting brilliantly again this week. Not only did she hit 106 kilos in the snatch from the floor, which is the most we've actually seen from her and the most that she's hit in a long time as she's been battling back, both with her mental difficulties that she mentioned on Instagram, but also just getting back into fighting shape. That 106 is just 6 kilos under her best snatch ever that we saw actually in competition at the World Championships last year. Of course, that 112 that allowed her to become a gold medalist in the snatch and then ultimately a gold medalist as a world champion in the total. She then also this week hit 182 kilos for a double in the back squat, which is really huge. I think her best ever back squat single is 185 that she did just before the World Championships last year. So this is 98.5% of that for a double. And that first rep was so fast, I wouldn't be surprised if she's not got maybe 190 kilos in for a single, which is just enormous. And I sincerely hope that she's able to do that in the coming weeks. Not only would it be amazing to see, it would just be amazing to report on the news show. So nice to see Kate Nye coming back both physically and mentally stronger than we've seen her recently. Next, some interesting news that people have been asking me to try and find out about. Hunter Elam, who used to compete for Team MASH Mafia but left just before the World Championships last year at the start of September, has started posting some videos of weightlifting again and tagging MASH Elite. So people have been wondering, is she back with MASH Elite? Well, I contacted Travis and I asked and I said, is Hunter back with you? And he said yes. So as it turns out, and I won't go into all of the details, Hunter is now back with Travis Mash. She obviously doesn't live in North or South Carolina, wherever it is that Mash Elite is. I can never remember between the two states. But she is still following now Travis's programming. So she took off a good amount of time after the World Championships. I suppose she was somewhat burnt out. She didn't necessarily know where to train, whose programming to follow. She does, however, have a weightlifting house barbell, which is kind of cool, so she trains on that. But she's now decided she's going to start coming back into weightlifting, and she's following Travis Mash's programming. So if you want to start watching her again lift some weights, follow her on Instagram, and hopefully we'll see her start pushing to make some international teams, presumably in the coming quad. Matty Rogers continues her tear in training at the moment. She hit 109 kilos in the snatch off blocks, just so consistent at those top end weights, above 105 kilos at the moment. It's amazing. She also hit 106 kilos and 103 on her way up to that 109. She also hit a 135 kilo hip clean or high hang clean. It's right in the power position, just to bend in the knees rather than any hinging at the hips, which is right up there obviously with her best ever clean. I think we've seen her do 140 from the floor. I think maybe 141 from that same high hang position. But even so, the consistency at these top percentages is really exciting for Matty. And then finally from the women of USAW, we have Jordan Dela Cruz, who I recorded a podcast with yesterday. That's probably up right now, so if you want to check that out, please do. Jordan Dela Cruz is obviously one of the greatest weightlifters in America at the moment. She's currently a 49 kilo lifter, down from 55, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in this episode. And also, we covered it extensively in the podcast if you want to check that out. But this week, Jordan just hit a 93 kilo power clean, which is a PR power clean from her. Now, we've seen her do 108 kilos in competition as a 49. She did that at the Roma World Cup back in January that I filmed, where she set new American records in the snatch, clean and jerk and total of that new 49 kilo category. But she's also clean and jerked 116 kilos back as a 55 kilo lifter, which I think she did at the 2019 Pan American Championships. So this 93 kilo power clean is actually quite a bit below her best ever clean. But as we learned yesterday when speaking with her, she is such a stickler for perfect technique. It's basically her goal. It's what she focuses on, according to her, all the time when she's training rather than weight on the bar, that it kind of maybe makes sense that she's able to just sneak under pulls that don't necessarily go quite so high, and that's maybe why her power clean is a little bit lower. But anyway, 93 kilos from her is fantastic. And let's use this to very quickly just talk about where Jordan sits in the qualification process in that 49 kilo category with regards to Roby points and how maybe she's going to do at the Olympics. So as a lot of you know, Jordan Dela Cruz was a 55 kilo weightlifter. In fact, before that, before the change in weight classes, she was a 53. And so she naturally made the move to 55 when the weight classes changed. And she's done pretty well in that category. I mean, she did 91 in the snatch, 116 in the clean and jerk. But in that category, she currently sits in terms of Roby points in 9th place, which means that probably she would go to the Olympics if she stayed there. She's currently not in the top 8, but she is occupying that highest continental slot. Plus, there are a couple of Chinese athletes above, some of whom are going to have to be removed. So she will move into the top 8. But as a 49 kilo weightlifter, which she's now competes as, she's actually sat in the 5th spot. Not only that, but there are 3 Chinese weightlifters above her. So when 2 of those move, she'll move up into the 3rd place position, which just means that not only is she pretty damn safe, even though she said that she still feels a little bit nervous because if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that we can't expect anything. But even so, she'll be in that 3rd position spot, which just means that she's going to be significantly more competitive as a 49 kilo lifter for medals at the Olympics. Right now, she looks like, actually, if she does well and she just totals somewhere around 200, we could be looking at a bronze medal for her. If she's able to actually move up and do some, a little bit more damage in training over the next year and goes for 205 kilos, which is actually the goal weight, the goal total that I think she wants to hit, her and Spencer Arnold, her coach, next year at the Olympics, she might be able to select at that point what medal she goes for. It might not just be the bronze medal at that point that she wants to get. It might even be a silver. You never know. If something happens, if someone bombs out, could even be a gold. And then finally from the USA, we're going to go over from one of the smallest weightlifters, Jordan De La Cruz, to one of the biggest weightlifters, maybe the biggest weightlifter, at least on the international scene. It's Kaiser Witt, the super heavyweight. This week he hit 115 kilos for a no contact, no hook, muscle snatch double. Now, this is obviously huge, but when you find out that his best muscle snatch ever is 145 kilos, it kind of makes sense that he can move 115 kilos so easily. That 145, however, was done with contact. But even so, enormous pull on Kaiser, which I guess is why we've now seen him snatch 190 kilos twice, just 7.5 kilos below the American record of 197.5 by Shane Hammond from back in 2000 or 2004 or something like that. He also hit a 160 kilo power snatch plus full snatch, just kind of letting us realize that, not only is his clean and his jerk progressing, but he's also got a lot more pull in the tank and his snatch at the same time. And finally, we're back over to Brazil, and we're going to be talking about the strongest man in Pan American weightlifting history. It's Fernando Reis. This week he snatched 190 kilos again. I said to him, this looks about as easy as any 190 we've ever seen from you, and he completely agreed with that, which is exciting because it's 95% of his best. We've seen him do 201 in competition, so 11 kilos below that, and it really did look very easy. In terms of Roby standings, once we remove Yang Zhe from China and Simon Martirosyan, who happened to just rank higher than him in that 109 super heavyweight class, because of course they've just competed in that class before, once they're removed, he then suddenly moves up into, I think, 5th place, which means that he's golden with regards to Olympic qualification, which is nice because I know a lot of people really love Fernando Reis. He has a huge following, a huge dedicated fan base, so kind of nice to see that he's in a completely safe position right now for Tokyo 2021. And guys, that is the end of this week's episode of the news show, but go nowhere because we now have the People's Lifts, and we have a special version of the People's Lifts because the 2012 Olympic champion Alexei Torokhtiy just called in to join us. So this is a 115 kilo double, and then he tries a double at 118 kilos, but he misses. So I want to know what you think and maybe what he could have done to make the lift. So this is a 115.
Okay. Cover more. But
and then do you want to see the 118?
Yeah.
All right, let's put this over here.
I will say that if it's more than 90%, I will say that it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
What if it will be me or my athletes, probably I will add more overhead exercise like snatch balances, snatch squats, overhead squats, snatch push presses, just to make stronger the overhead position.
Yeah,
it looks like pull is okay, maybe a little bit because his thighs a little bit longer than torso. Do you see this?
Yeah.
That's why the pull is not so typical, like not classic movement, but the receiving position should be stronger and more stable. The shoulders is good, but the receiving position should be stronger. That's why more overhead exercise.
Yeah, so a little bit more like the complex that you made famous. What was the complex that you right at the start when you became really well known? It was like yeah. How many? What was it? Was it push press? It was snatch plus snatch push press plus snatch balance plus overhead squat. Yeah, he needs some more of those in his life.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the next one.
125.
125.
Probably kilos.
I don't know what. All right, I'm assuming that this is pounds, but we'll say so. 125.
Good shorts.
Let's
one more time.
Stick with it, yeah.
The second was better.
Yeah.
Again, receiving position, a little bit overextension, but if it's close to PR, it's good.
Yeah.
I mean it's difficult to lift PR with the correct movement, especially for the people who do weightlifting first 3-5 years, because the movement is not so stable. That's why if it will be my athletes, I will add more hang snatches with for example, snatch pull with the hang snatch, and the same overhead exercise, because it's important for everyone.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest problem is receiving position, and it's because people are afraid, and it's because people don't have enough strength or power in this position. That's why snatch balance, snatch overhead squat, and confidence. Yeah, this exercise helped to build the confidence, one of them.
What do you think about, you should jump forward a little bit. Do you mind about that, or would you say to do no foot snatches, or do you not really care?
I will say something. Probably someone will critique me, but my opinion that the best when you jump and when you land in the same place.
Yeah.
Mistake when you jump forward. Big mistake when you jump backwards.
Really? It's worse to jump backwards?
I did jump backwards always. So if you do one RAM and you do a jump forward or backward, but you hold the bar and you lift.
Yeah, like the Iranians. Yeah, that's what Rostami does. He jumps forward, but sometimes he misses actually, but normally he makes his lifts.
Because my coach always told me that if you jump backward, you're afraid the bar. And you make a round around you. You move the bar around you. Yeah. So if you jump forward, you like a bull on the bar.
Yeah. I see. You're aggressive. Cool. All right, let's get the next one up. This is a miss. I think it's a PR, 130 kilos in the snatch, and he misses it. And I wanted to know if you had any advice for him. I think he does it twice, maybe.
A little bit bending of the arms during the pull. Again, we should start to lift the bar with our legs, not with our arms. The legs work first. When you start to bend your arms, you make them tight, and that's why after the power position, when the bar starts to fly up, the arms is so tight, and you don't have enough, or you don't have quick dropping under the bar. That's why the first one, probably, if this man will try to do the next lift but with the straps, maybe he will lift.
He'll make it. Yeah,
I believe that probably he will lift, because with the straps you don't think about your grip and you don't make your arms tight.
Yeah.
And something about the receiving position again.
It was a bit out in front, I think.
Yeah. But again, it's happened, or it's need to see that it's shoulders issue, or it's because he is afraid.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. All right. So two more. We have Okay, so this is a guy that I know who owns a gym in France, and this is
Without,
more funny
without
now.
shoes.
Yeah, this is funny because I thought that you were going to have an enormous strict press, but now this guy is going to strict press 100 kilos for 3 reps, and he only weighs 87 kilos. So it turns out he might have a better press than you.
Yep. So I just want to say that there is not so good for the wrist.
What did you say? Sorry.
One more time.
Yeah, this is a final rep.
And make a pause when he will hold on the shoulders.
Pause at which point? Sorry.
So this position.
Oh, this position.
In this position, again, it's good for. So I will say that it's not. Maybe it's good for something another, but for weightlifting, it's not so good because again, in weightlifting, we try to develop the position what is very close to the jerk when we do additional exercise. In this position, he hold the bar on the arms, not on the claviculas, not on the shoulders, on the arms. So again, it's good for press, but it's not help. It's not help for the real jerk.
I see what you mean. All right, let's see this last rep. See how easy or difficult it looks.
I can say nothing bad because he's stronger than me.
He's going to be so happy.
If he do 100 kilos on a triple, I will try. I will try to do 100 kilos on one rep. If I will do this, I will post it in Instagram.
I bet you can do it. I bet you can.
And I will tag you. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, one more then. Miss Sarah 92. This is her first time ever clean and jerking 100 kilos. So this is a PR for her. Wow.
So again, if it's PR, it's cool.
Yeah.
If to talk about something to change for the future, the first one again is arms bending during the pull. The second one is receiving the bar in the clean.
Yeah.
The lower back is bent, not and why it's not bad, because in one day it will be connection of the elbows with the knees
and hurt the wrist.
It's very dangerous. Yeah.
I thought the jerk was impressive. She got her back knee very low.
And the jerk was with the movement of the knees forward.
Yeah.
I try to explain when we do jerk, it should be very close to how we want to see on the chair or how we want to jump on the box. So we move our knees out and our hips back.
Yeah.
She did a movement with the knees forward and with the vertical position. So it's probably she tried to pick up this from the Chinese school, but she's not from China. She's not Asian.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that was a lot of fun. I hope people are going to enjoy seeing you critique their technique on YouTube. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that final part of the episode with Oleksandr Torokhtiy, the man, the myth, the legend, the 200 kilo snatcher, the 255 kilo power jerk, a holder of the heaviest power jerk on video of all time. Hopefully we're going to start getting in a couple of other athletes and coaches to join us for that final part of the show. So it's not just me looking at your lifts and watching them and saying how cool they are. We actually have proper people talking about the specifics of the technique of your lifts. Guys, if you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/weightliftinghouse. You get extra videos, extra podcasts, and extra training programs every single week on there. Also, you can check out weightliftinghouse.com, barbells, plates, books, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, thumb tape. We've got everything there. And of course, we've got the new Weightlifting House straps. Links are all down below. And don't forget to use discount code weightliftinghouse for 10% off all Virus International clothing. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you all next week on another episode of the Weightlifting House News Show.